screen. Okay, I'm recording and sharing my screen. So nice. Okay. Okay, so the lecture, just a second. Yeah, okay, good. And the laser pointer. So, generally, the question is, are interventions with physical activity effective for children? Yeah, I will talk about this, or I will try to analyze the effectiveness of interventions with physical activity for children. So first of all, it's I'll just let the two guys eintreten lassen. Okay. Okay, so I will talk about interventions with physical activity for children, and I will try to analyze if they are effective. Yeah, if interventions with physical activity have an effect on the general level of physical activity in children. It is a topic, yeah, which has a high priority in our society. Yeah, it's so of course we know that physical activity levels in children and adolescents are decreasing worldwide, yeah, and we give a lot of energy and a lot of efforts to increase this level of physical activity in children and adolescents. And the question is, are we doing the right thing? Yeah, has it any effect? But let's have a look in detail. Okay. So, okay, I will try to provide an evidence-based check of the efficiency of interventions with physical activity for children and adolescents. Yeah, I brought some cross-sectional studies. Yeah, and okay, this should be cross-sectional studies, some longitudinal studies, and one systematic review. Of course, I will provide a summary and point out consequences for practical aspects of physical activity promotion. Just a brief repetition, yeah, I am sure and I hope you are aware of this graph, yeah, of this picture, of the physical activity and energy expenditure. So, of course, we have different levels of physical activity and sedentary behavior. Yeah. So, what is sedentary behavior? Yeah. When we sleep, it's not sedentary behavior. Yeah. So when we sleep, we have a very, very low energy expenditure. Yeah. It's less than 0.95 MET, yeah, metabolic equivalence. Sedentary behavior is this what I'm doing at the moment, yeah. So I'm sitting, I am awake and sitting, and this is sedentary behavior, yeah. And I have a energy expenditure just approximately about 1 or 1.5 METs, and I guess you are all sitting at the moment as well. And one basic characteristics of sitting is the very low energy expenditure, and this is not a very healthy thing to do, yeah, because your metabolism slows down. And if you have this over prolonged periods, yeah, it's not very healthy, and it increases the risk of many, many negative things you do not really want to experience, yeah. And then you have light physical activity. Yeah, this is, for example, if I stand up now, go to the toilet or open the window. Yeah, this is very, very light physical activity. Then I have moderate physical activity. Yeah, this is like walking to the bus station, or yeah, I don't know. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, a little bit faster, not so very slow. And then I have intense physical activity. Yeah, this is like running, cycling. Yeah, where you have more than 6 METs. Yeah, running, cycling, going hiking, or working in the garden. Yeah, doing some really intense gardening. Yeah, or some snow shoveling. Yeah, if everything is covered with snow in your driveway and you will have to shovel the snow away, this is intense physical activity. Where is physical activity happening? Yeah, so there are different domains in which physical activity is happening. Yeah, so it can happen in your job. Yeah, if you are a postman or a nurse, or if you work in a hospital. Yeah, you have to walk a lot. Yeah, or if you work on a construction site, yeah, there you will have a relatively high amount of physical activity, and of course, there are certain jobs, yeah, like my job is where I sit a lot, yeah, and where I am not physically very active. In school, there you can find some physical activity. Then, of course, in your leisure time, you can find physical activity in your house, yeah, at your house, like walking the stairs up and down, yeah, doing some typically housework, yeah, like cleaning and stuff like this. So this is physical activity as well. And in transportation, yeah, when you are getting from A to B, there you can find physical activity. So these are different domains where physical activity is happening: job, leisure time, house, and transport. A big question, and an interesting question, is the determinants of physical activity. Yeah, so which factors are influencing physical activity behavior? Yeah, and this is a really a mixture of sociological and pedagogical question. Yeah, of course, the individual level is a very big influencing factor of. So first of all, this is a social economic model. Yeah, so I'm sure you will have this. I'm sure Billy will present this social ecological model with you in the course in the class Theories and Models. Yeah. And the social ecological model explains physical activity behavior quite a lot. Yeah, the individual level has a big impact on physical activity behavior. Yeah, like the motivation you have, the cognitive resources you have, the timely resources. Yeah, so factors on individual level. Yeah. On the other hand, interpersonal factors will have an impact on the physical activity behavior, like socio-demographic factors. Yeah, also interpersonal, it's the relationship between persons. Yeah, what role models you have, for example. Yeah, how your parents or your peer group is motivating you or not motivating you to be physically active. Yeah, so interpersonal relationships do play a big role. Yeah, for example, the relationship from children to their parents. Yeah, parents are the gatekeeper of physical activity for children. Yeah, how they are behaving. Yeah, how they are physically active or not active. Yeah, how the parents organize things like leisure time behavior, like transportation, and so on. Yeah, these are factors on interpersonal level. Factors on the social cultural environments, yeah, are very important for physical activity behavior. Like, let's take some things like norms in society. Yeah, you have some societies where the norm is sitting, yeah, where the norm is driving with a car from A to B. Yeah? Like, for example, in United States, yeah, in America, in Los Angeles, nobody is walking. Yeah, so the social norm is to drive to the grocery store, to drive to the mailbox, yeah, to drive 400 meters to visit your neighbors and not walking. And this has a huge impact of your behavior. Yeah, or for example, in some areas or in some countries, yeah, even here in Germany, for example, the social norm was let's say in Germany in the 50s and 60s. The social norm was not accepted to be physically active in public, yeah, for example, to go jogging or to go to be in some kind of in some physical active in some way. In some countries, we have it until today, yeah, it's not the norm to be physically active in the public, yeah, and so on, yeah, norms in your family, and so on. It has a huge impact. So the social cultural environment has a huge impact on the physical activity behavior. Of course, the built environment, yeah, has a big impact on your physical activity behavior. So, do you live in a very densely populated areas? Yeah, are there bike paths? Yeah, is it even possible to ride with a bike from A to B, or is this traffic so bad that you cannot drive with a bike? Are there walking paths, yeah, or is there an infrastructure to be physically active? Yeah, is there access to playground? Yeah, is there access to area where you can be physically active? Yeah, um, the built environment, the physical environment has a big impact on physical activity behavior, and of course the political circumstances. Yeah, the political situation has a big impact on all the different aspects, yeah. But the political framework, the political circumstances, they are influencing the traffic planning, yeah, the environmental protection. Is the government on local or national level taking actions to reduce, just one example, yeah, to reduce air pollution, yeah, or if the government on local or national level is not taking any measures against air pollution, so the air will be very dirty, very polluted, yeah, and this reduces the likeliness that you will be physically active outside, yeah. So yeah, many interesting and multifaceted, multifacets aspects which are influencing physical activity behavior. Okay. Yeah, of course, you know this graph. Yeah, I already showed it in a previous class. The association between physical activity and health. Yeah, here for adults. So just very briefly, yeah, the more steps you do, the more physical active you are, the lower is the mortality risk. Yeah, it's um, a cross-sectional data cohort study. Yeah, we can see here when we are walking many steps per day. Yeah, like 10,000, 12,000, or even 14,000 steps per day, the mortality rate is reduced to a considerable amount. Yeah, if you are physically not very active, the mortality rate is way higher. Of course, this is cross-sectional data, yeah, and from this data we cannot judge any. We cannot judge the cause and the effects very good, yeah. So this provides us no direction, yeah, just an association, and we cannot say if there's a causality. Yeah? This could be even an association by chance, but of course we know today we have research on this for, I don't know, 50, 60 or 70 years. We know the causalities quite well, and we know that there's an association. This is which is well established. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look on the association of physical activity and health in children and adolescents. Yeah, this is just one piece of research. There is a big body of research. Yeah, so we have a lot of research on that. Yeah, this is just as one example. Yeah, a systematic review of 200,000 children and adolescents from 31 countries. Yeah. So physical activity of children and adolescents is positively correlated or associated with indicators of physical, psychological, and social health. Yeah, and here we finding an importance. Yeah, we find and so the intensity of physical activity shows an association. The more of intense physical activity children and adolescents do, the better is the association with health. Yeah, and we know now for sure that if children are not physically active to a high extent, it has a really very negative impact on their health. Yeah, no matter so on physical level, on psychological level, and on social level. Yeah, so children really have to be physical activity, have to move. Yeah, um, in order to be healthy. Yeah, it's a very integral, very important part. Okay, so I'm sure you all know about this. Yeah, the WHO recommendation for physical activity, newly it has so they were not new in 2020, but updated. Yeah, now updated. Yeah. So in generally, we should limit sedentary time. Yeah, just sitting and speaking, or sitting and watching, consuming media. Yeah, like I do at the moment. We should limit this as much as possible. Yeah, we should be physically active. Um, as often as possible. Yeah, so genau, replace sedentary behavior with physical activity as often as possible. You and me, we should be physically active a minimum of 150 minutes per week. Yeah, or between 150 and 300. The more, the better. I'm sure all of us will fulfill these recommendations. Yeah. What about kids? Yeah, children should be physically active a minimum of 16 minutes per day. Yeah, younger children from 3 to 4 years um, should have a minimum physical activity of 118 minutes daily. Okay, and the more, the better. Okay, what is the status quo? Yeah, the physical activity level of children and adolescents worldwide. We can see here that worldwide, and even in low income, in lower to middle income countries, and in upper to middle income countries, and in high income countries, the percentage of boys and girls fulfilling these activity guidelines is quite low. Yeah, so even in low-income countries, the percentage of children not being sufficiently physically active is quite low. Yeah, so worldwide we have 85% of girls and 78% of boys are less active than 1 hour per day. Yeah, and here we have a worldwide a gender gap. Yeah, so girls are less active than boys in 29% of the countries. Yeah, so we can say in more or less all parts of the world, children are not sufficiently physically active. Okay, and during the pandemic, yeah, this problem increased. Yeah, so during the pandemic, we had some really good studies about the change in physical activity. Interestingly, we had some studies who showed an increase in physical activity during the pandemic. Yeah, so for some children, obviously, the pandemic during the pandemic they had a good time. Yeah, at least when it comes to physical activity. But of course, the majority of studies showed a dramatic decrease. Yeah, dramatic decrease in physical activity. So the pandemic was it had been a period where physical activity levels, the already low physical activity level, decreased and decreased. Yeah, So yeah, so I'm glad that the pandemic is over and now we can do what we want. Okay. What about the physical activity level in Germany? Yeah, so we have the Motorik module, huge sample, yeah, with children and adolescents aged between 6 and 17 years, 52% female, yeah, just 4% of children and adolescents, if you measure with accelerometer, yeah, fulfill the WHO recommendations for physical activity. So a minimum of 60 minutes daily. Yeah. If you measure with questionnaire, yeah, measuring with questionnaire is less precise. So we have some kind of reporting bias. It's 9% fulfilling the physical activity guidelines. Yeah. So these are shocking numbers. Yeah, let's put it like this. Children, adolescents in Germany do not move physically enough. Yeah. So we have a active healthy kids network, yeah, which analyze many different sources, many different studies about physical activity behavior, and they're giving school grades. Yeah, and in Germany you have 1 is the best grade, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 is the worst grade you can have, and the general grade for all children is a 4 minus, yeah, which is a really bad grade, yeah, 4 minus. And girls and boys have the grade 4 minus. And if you look at different studies, yeah, we can see that 13 to 40% of children and adolescents in Germany, that just 13 to 40% are fulfilling the WHO recommendation. Of course, this is a big range, yeah, and this range differs from that range as well. So we have different studies, different methodological approaches, yeah, different, even measuring different participants groups. So this is one cause for this big range, yeah. But let's be honest, yeah, if you take this number or that numbers, the number is too low. Yeah? Also less children fulfill, or less children are physical active in Germany, and it's not a good thing. Okay, so worldwide and in Germany we have low levels of physical activity. Yeah. The promotion of physical activity is a preventive strategy for improving health. Yeah. So we have numerous ideas and initiatives for the promotion and physical activity. Yeah. Children are spending a lot of time in school, and in Germany, all children have to go to school. So basically, at school, you will find all children, yeah, more or less all children in Germany, spending many hours there. So the school is an ideal setting for physical activity promotion, and this is the reason why we can find in Germany many projects, yeah, for physical activity promotion. Okay. Yeah. So I told you this. I told you before. Yeah. These socio-ecological models. Yeah. And the different levels have an impact on physical activity behavior. And so most of the projects, yeah, if they are thinking how can we improve physical activity, they turn to this model, yeah, and they think, okay, let's start our project, yeah, on the interpersonal level. Let's change the behavior or the just for example, yeah, the mentality in the family, yeah. Let's educate the parents that they are more physical activity, yeah. Or another project starts here in the environmental, in the built environment, yeah. So let's build more playgrounds, more things to climb and to run on the playground, yeah, to motivate children. So let's change the built environment that children will change their physical activity behavior. Yeah. So like 99% of the projects, they are starting in one level, starting to change something there in order to change physical activity behavior. So in my or our criticism was that potential impacts of biological regulations on physical activity were not considered very much. Yeah, so everything focused just on these levels, but not really on potential biological impacts on physical activity regulation. What do I mean with this? May sound a little bit strange. Yeah. I will explain it to you now. So in the 90s, yeah, or the late 90s, the activity stat hypothesis was built. And what does it mean, activity stat hypothesis? Just one second. Okay, the activity stat hypothesis was postulated by Rowland, and he said that increases in physical activity in one domain, yeah, for example, in school, yeah, are compensated by a reduction in physical activity in another domain in order to maintain an overall stable level of physical activity or energy expenditure. Basically, what he was saying was that the biological organism is always aiming to maintain homeostasis level, yeah. And if you suddenly increase the energy expenditure in school, yeah, children will rest to have to match an equal energy expenditure level, so the same energy expenditure level than yesterday, for example. Yeah, and the displacement theory is a complete opposite. Displacement theory means if you replace a sedentary activity with physical activity, it could have a positive effect. Yeah, one example is so, for example, the children where so the parents drive the children to school by car. Yeah, so it's a typical sedentary activity, transport to school in a passive way. If you replace this sedentary activity with physical activity, for example, cycling or walking to school, yeah, this will have a sustainable positive effect on the physical activity behavior. And the activity stat hypothesis is completely the opposite. Yeah, for example, so white is inactivity, gray is light physical activity, and the dark gray is moderate to vigorous physical activity. Yeah, and let's say we are in school. Yeah. So in day one, yeah, you have an average mean light physical activity from 950 met minutes, yeah, and moderate to vigorous physical activity level from 50 met minutes per day. And then the next day, yeah, kids go to school, and in school there is a new intervention to increase physical activity level, and instead of 50 met minutes, they move 200 met minutes in moderate to vigorous physical activity. Yeah, and as a reaction on that, so the light physical activity level stays more or less the same, but as a reaction to that, the later during the day later, they increase the inactivity minutes, yeah, in order to match the energy expenditure level from day one, yeah, and day three they go to school again, yeah, and the next level of the physical activity intervention kicks in, and they have 300 met minutes, moderate to vigorous physical activity level. Then therefore, because they move here more, the light physical activity is reduced, and in the afternoon they increase sedentary behavior even more in order to match the energy expenditure. Yeah, this is on a theoretical level an example for the activity stat hypothesis. Yeah, hypothesis. So I just made a graph for the negative compensation. Yeah, so this is low, this is high. Yeah, and let's say here you have or just 1 second. Okay, so yeah, okay. So this, let's say here, this is the morning. Yeah, in the morning, the children have a high physical activity level at school. Yeah, so they move a lot in school. Yeah, they run around. They have a good playground. Have some physical education classes. Yeah, so they're physically active in school. In the morning, they move a lot. Then school is over. They go home. Yeah, and they compensate their physical activity they had in the morning with being sedentary in the afternoon and in the evening. Yeah, so this is a negative compensation. Yeah, so being active in the morning, therefore compensating this high level of physical activity with being inactive in the afternoon. Yeah, this is negative compensation. Positive compensation would be the other way around. So in the morning, yeah, they are not physically active at school. Yeah, so they sit a lot, they don't play, they don't have a playground, they don't have a soccer pitch. Yeah, they don't have a basketball court, whatever. They're not very active. Then school is over, they go home, and they are physically very active in the afternoon. This would be a positive compensation. Yeah. Okay. So far to this theoretical construct, to this theoretical ideas. Let's let's have a look. Let's see what's the case in the real life scenario. Yeah. So I brought you some studies. First study is cross-sectional study. Yeah, of course you can see it immediately. The question was, are children in schools with a strong emphasis on physical activity throughout the day more active than children in schools without good conditions for physical activity? Yeah, or do these measures dissipate due to sedentary behavior in the afternoon? So do we find a compensation? Yeah. So we had a cross-sectional study, school 1, school 2, and school 3. School 1, yeah, was a private school with many sports facilities. So they had a nice playground, yeah, with soccer pitches, basketball pitches, and most importantly, so the school, yeah, so the school had 9 hours physical education per week, yeah, which for Germany is quite a lot. So in Germany, we have between 2 or 3 hours physical education in school per week. Yeah. School number 2 um, was not an urban school. Yeah. They had 2.2 hours of physical education per week, not in the city, with a good and proven concept for physical education promotion. Yeah. And school number 3 was a very urban school with 1.8 hours physical activity per week. An urban school without sport facilities and no concept for physical activity. Yeah. So, and what did they do in these 3 schools? Yeah. They measured the physical activity level with accelerometers during 7 days. Yeah. So about 215 participants, 9.5 years old. So school 1, yeah, remember the school with a good with a good with many physical education hours and good facility for physical activity. School 2, the average school. School 3, the bad school, yeah, with just 1.8 hours of physical education per week and with no sports facility and no concept for physical activity promotion. Here you find the boys, here you find the girls, yeah. And in school 1, in the morning, yeah, we see the activity minutes, yeah, they have a lot of activity minutes. They are quite active during school hours. Yeah, at school 2 and school 3, boys and boys and girls are less active in school 2 and 3 compared to school 1. Yeah. In the afternoon, what happens in the afternoon? Yeah. Children from school 1 become very less active. Yeah. They don't move a lot. Yeah. So in the schools with a low number of physical activity classes and the bad and no good conditions for physical activities, children, boys and girls, are more physically active in the afternoon. And if you compare the physical activity minutes during the whole day, we don't find a difference between the 3 schools. Yeah, so the whole physical activity minutes per day do not differ between the 3 schools. Yeah, the variation is less than 3%. And less than 1% of the variance is explained by the school environment. So it seems that the built environment, which is very different in these 3 schools, do not make a difference, yeah, on the whole day physical activity level. Yeah, which is kind of shocking, to be honest. Yeah, so the variation in physical activity lies within the child, not within his or her environment. Okay, let's look at another study which is very, very new, very, very recent, yeah, from a researcher from Erlangen-Nürnberg, yeah, Franziska Beck, which I know quite good. This was a comparison of physical activity level in 370 girls. Yeah, girls, one of the few studies, one of the few girls-only studies, 11 and a half years old. And they looked at do these girls compensate the physical activity behavior? So they compared physical activity behavior morning versus afternoon and weekday versus weekend. Yeah, so positive compensation would be if the physical activity in the morning or at a weekday is relatively low and the physical activity level in the afternoon or the weekend is very high. This would be a positive compensation. And negative compensation would be physical activity level in the morning during school hours and or at the weekend. Yeah, if here we will find a high physical activity level, and in the afternoon or the weekend the physical activity level is very low, this would be an negative compensation. Yeah, so we spoke about compensation when the difference between these two categories is more than 1.5 standard deviations difference. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah. Positive compensation, morning versus afternoon, very low. Yeah, so we just found it in 6.6% of cases. Yeah, and 5.4% of cases, weekday versus weekend. If we look at negative compensation, yeah, more than 50%, morning versus afternoon, and weekday versus weekend. Yeah, so quite a high percentage of children is showing a negative compensation. Again, negative compensation means if the physical activity level in the morning is very high and in the afternoon is very low, then we have a negative compensation. Okay, so the activity stat hypothesis could not be dismissed completely, yeah, but also could not be accepted fully. But we found a shockingly high number of negative compensation. I showed you 2 cross-sectional studies. Yeah, cross-sectional data is interesting, but it does not show cause and effect. Yeah, it does not show any causality. Yeah, what's very important to examine in causality is, of course, interventional studies. Yeah, and so I brought you one example from about an interventional study. From this study is actually from Finland. Finland is a very one of it's a model country, yeah, one of the best countries when it comes to physical activity behavior. Yeah, they really have a national plan. They really have taken very, very good measures in order to increase physical activity level in all the populations. But okay, let's have a look. What did they do? Yeah, so they had school 1, 2, and 3, yeah, and school 5 and 6, yeah. So 6 different, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 and 6, yeah. So okay, and they equipped all the students from this school with an accelerometer, and they measured the physical activity level during 7 days in this 6 schools, yeah. And this was, as you can see here, the baseline, yeah. They assessed the activity level, mean and vigorous physical activity, and the sedentary minutes. In October 2010, yeah. Then in March 2011, also just 1 week later, yeah, school 1, 2, 3, and 4 became interventional schools, yeah. So in Finland, it's a very meanwhile a very big program, yeah, the MOVE program, yeah, it's very, very famous in Finland. So in these 4 schools, the MOVE program started, yeah. It's a program to, you guessed it, to improve physical activity level, yeah. And then in March 2011, yeah, they had this measurement period again, 7 days, um, uh, measuring physical activity level in school 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are now interventional schools, yeah, and the control schools, yeah, school 5 and 6, where they did not do, where they did not implement any concept for physical activity promotion. They had the same measurement, yeah. They measured again mean to vigorous physical activity level and sedentary time. Okay, then in October 2011, they did it again, yeah, 7 days measuring physical activity level and sedentary behavior. And in March 2012, they had this measurement again, yeah. So here the baseline, yeah, then follow up measuring 1, follow up measurement period 2, follow up measurement period 3, yeah. And of course, here baseline, and then you have the comparison interventional versus control school, yeah, interventional versus control school, interventional versus control school. Okay, let's have a look on the results, yeah. In green, physical activity level, in red, sedentary time. So during school hours, yeah, in T2, 3, and 4, yeah, so the follow-up measurements, the interventional school, school 1, 2, and 3, the physical activity minutes increased, yeah, in the morning during school hours, the sedentary time decreased. But the whole day, yeah, so we measured, or not we, the scientists, yeah, the researchers measured the activity level during the whole day. If you have a look on the whole day physical activity level, there's no difference, yeah, between baseline and the follow-up measurements of sedentary minutes and physical activity minutes in the interventional schools, yeah. In the control schools, we do not have any difference in the physical activity behavior and in the sedentary behavior during all these 4 measurements, yeah. School hours and whole day activity behavior does not change in these schools over the 4 measurements, yeah. So basically, if you take the whole day, yeah, physical activity behavior does not differ between these 4 measurements, yeah, between all the 6 schools, which is kind of devastating findings. Okay, in these schools, additional physical activity during school hours was compensated for inactivity time after school. Yeah, quite devastating. So I presented you some studies, yeah, and as you know, from some studies, yeah, from 1, 2, 3, or 4 studies, it's not the big picture, yeah. You are not. So yeah, you don't have the big picture, and we were really interested to perform a systematic review in order to provide the big picture, yeah, the overview about all studies, more or less all studies in this area, yeah. So in this specific topic, yeah. So we wanted to know, is the compensation, yeah, the phenomenon of compensation, is this prevalent in more or less all studies, or are there some settings which are more prone to the phenomenon of compensation? So we did a big systematic review, yeah. So just briefly, yeah, data extraction, what the study design, sample, study aim, the measuring methods, and the duration, and the domain, respectively the context where the physical activity interventions took place. And yeah, this is just the most important thing, the main results for the association of physical activity in 2 domains. Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a busy slide. Yeah. Some busy graphs, but I summarized the results here. So all in all, we had 77 studies with more than 40,000 participants. We found compensation, the phenomenon of compensation, in 39 studies, yeah, which is the corresponding number, 16,000 participants, yeah, which is just approximately 40% of subjects. So 40% of subjects, yeah, from these 40,000 showed the phenomenon of compensation. Yeah. We had no compensation in 60% of subjects. Yeah, if you are good in math, you can follow me. 75% of interventional studies showed compensation of physical activity behavior. Yeah, so it seems that interventional studies show a very high percentage of compensation. And another finding was that the longer the interventional studies were running, the higher was the percentage of compensation. Then we had a look at different domains and different studies. Yeah, if the intervention with physical activity took place in school, yeah, school-based physical activity promotion, then we found 72% of we found the phenomenon of compensation in 72% of the studies. Yeah, so the school, yeah, which is really a favorite setting for trying to increase physical activity behavior, yeah, is very, very vulnerable, very, very prone to the phenomenon of compensation. Yeah. If it's active commuting, so traveling active to school with walking or cycling, yeah, we just found 50% of the compensation, yeah, and if the increase in physical activity took place in physical education, we found 40% compensation. Most interesting thing, if the intervention with physical activity took place in sports club, yeah, we had no compensation, but we just found one study, or we just included one study in this review, where the intervention with physical activity took place in a sport club. So compensation maybe mainly in schools. Yeah. So as you can see here, it's not a good news, but compensation is very, very common in schools. Okay, the conclusions, yeah. of the systematic review, activity start hypothesis cannot be dismissed and cannot be accepted fully. Compensation of physical activity is frequently found, in 40% of the participants. Interventional studies are very vulnerable for compensation, and the longer the studies are running, the more compensation we can find. Schools, unfortunately, are very, very vulnerable for compensation. Physical activity in sports clubs is not compensating, so of course, we cannot provide any reliable information about that, but maybe it's intrinsic motivation or it's training effects. Yeah, maybe the fitness level is higher in sport club members than in non-sport club members, and this could be a reason for not showing compensation to this high extent, but we do not know. Of course, this review, does not show us any mechanisms and reasons for the compensation, so they still remain unknown. We can only speculate about reasons, and what does our finding mean now for at least for research. So at first we need one valid operationalization, one valid definition of compensation. So from which level we can speak about compensation. Intervention studies promoting physical activity measure the level with physical activity using objective measurements. This is very important, using objective methods, and of course across several days and different domains. It does not help us when we just measure physical activity in school. We have to measure different domains, and we, as a researcher, we should be able to identify these different domains. So this is maybe when ambulatory assessment comes into play, when they are not just wearing one accelerometer, but they are using their smartphone, and then they type in their smartphone, now I'm in school, now I'm in the bus driving from school to home, or now I'm on the bicycle riding from school to home, and that we know where they are and that we can identify the domains where they are active and where they are not so active. Future research projects, we should take a very careful look which individuals compensate for physical activity. So maybe we could look at fitness level. One hypothesis from me is that physically fit individuals may compensate less physical activity, and vice versa. So we should really explore the relationship between correlates and determinants of physical activity and compensation, across different domains. So in school, leisure time, at home, and so on. We should have a look at energy expenditure and compensation. Maybe it's possible that if we have an intervention in order to increase physical activity level which has a high level of energy expenditure, maybe the children are tired after this intervention and show compensatory behavior. Maybe interventions in order to increase physical activity level with low energy expenditure, show a lower level of compensation afterwards, and vice versa. So we really have to look at energy expenditure, or we have to look at the relationship between energy expenditure and compensation. And of course, we have to look at individual variants of compensation. So meaning, is it the person? Is it does it lie within the person, or within the situation, which is a main cause for compensation, Just one example, so the mechanism for and the reasons for compensation are unknown, and I brought you here one example showing that the situation is responsible for the activity levels. This is some accelerometer data from myself, yeah. So at Saturday and Sunday, I used to be physically very active. The reason is because Saturday and Sunday I do not have to work, yeah, and I train on Sundays. I go hiking and running. I do many kilometers on Sunday, and so Sunday is my day with the highest number of steps, yeah. And on Monday, I have to work, I have to teach classes, yeah, I have to do this and that. So my physical activity level is quite low, yeah. So it's the situation which forces me to be less physical active. But maybe it's the activity start hypothesis, yeah. So I have a high energy expenditure on Sunday. Maybe I am tired on Monday and I have to rest. Yeah. So these things we have to take a very, very careful look. Yeah. So we can analyze typical weeks with accelerometer and diaries to see the activity level in the different domains. We can do interviews in order to identify the main reason for physical activity behavior or sedentary behavior. So some small studies have done this. Yeah, they have performed interviews with children and their parents, and in order to describe or identify potential compensatory mechanisms from the perspective of parents and children. Yeah, and these thematic analysis identified two overreaching themes. Yeah, so parents are aware of compensation and the mechanisms of compensation. Yeah. So for example, they say after an active day at school, most children perceive that compensation occurred later that day. Yes, and the mechanisms for it are psychological, physiological, environmental, and interpersonal mechanisms. Maybe so, also which mechanisms and reasons do we find for compensation? Maybe it's an intra-individual variance for compensation. Yeah, so maybe it's the factors which lie in the person. Yeah, cause compensation. So we know from physical activity behavior research that some personalities or some that some personalities some personality traits, yeah, are responsible for the change in physical activity. Yeah, so there's a bi-directional association between personality and physical activity level in adulthood. Yeah, I won't go into detail, but maybe the personality type could also be responsible for compensation or not, or for showing compensation or not showing compensation. Okay, yeah. So this is a correct slide. Yeah. So for the applied practice of promoting physical activity, yeah. So encouraging physical activity in one domain is not sufficient. Yeah. So we need to work in different domains, yeah, not just at school, yeah, not just at home, but in many different domains in order to in order to reach a sufficient level of physical activity. Yeah, so initiatives to promote physical activity should encourage physical activity across different domains. So at school, yeah, plus leisure time, plus sports club, and so on. Yeah, one domain is obviously not enough. Yeah, and we should also working on avoiding we should also work on reducing sedentary time in other domains. Yeah, so trying to increase physical activity level in different domains and trying to reduce sedentary time in different domains. Yeah, and of course we should raise raise awareness among children, parents, communities, yeah, teachers, stakeholders, and other influencers about the phenomenon of compensation. Yeah, we really should make people aware of this phenomenon. Okay, yeah, this was my lecture about compensation in the context of interventions for increasing physical activity level. Some shocking news, yeah, but only if you know about all, or only if you know about the influencing factors, you are able to change them. So thank you very much for your attention. Now I would be open for questions. Yeah, I will stop the recording.